Hey all. So another war here. Some interesting fights. We're up against 2-1-1. Very good alliance. Always placed very high. Don't die that much. We knew we were going to have to be careful. So I admit I was a little bit nervous on this first one because I don't think ever taken Tigra with Reed before. That's usually a fight where I find a way to bring Torch. However, this time, um, because of a fight I was taking later, it just didn't make much sense to me to bring Torch, and I figured that it would work out better for me to play the node with Reed here, maybe deal with a Fury, but just, like I said, play around the node and not worry about nuking her and just outlasting her, and that way I would get more pre-fights for later on. As you can see, as I always say, this power struggle node is really not that difficult in a lot of ways because you're usually not at risk of running out of those charges before they cross a bar of power and therefore you get a special to throw. And Mystics usually make it easier because Mystic Dispersion just amplifies that. However, the one exception to that is somebody like Tigra here, who was refusing to throw specials at all, and that absolutely can be a problem. However, I'm pretty comfortable with her special to evade. Notice that I was using that heavy attack and then whiffing the light after to try and keep her aggressive. Eventually she did throw it, and because she didn't have too many Furies, I wasn't too worried. I'll also point out that because every one of those had at least a few unblockable hits in it, Reed's evade chance, thanks to his dupe, was going up and up. Didn't end up needing it to save me, but that is one of the few fights I've taken where that side of the dupe was actually a factor in terms of me having a safety net. So then we have iHulk again, same fight that I think it was 2 wars ago that I took this. He's a pretty common placement here. As I've explained before, he's a pretty good placement here because many attempts to nuke him just end up giving him a ton of Furies, and then he'll go unblockable and bad things can happen. But as long as you're careful, play the node as much as possible and try not to give him Furies, maybe take a few extra parried hits, as you will see me do here, or just flat out blocked. A champion like Killmonger has the health to deal with it. You'll be fine. Now there I did make a mistake. I used an extra medium when I did not need to, and then I didn't follow it up with the light that I would have needed to get to a bar of power and throw the special one. So instead of him having, I think, 1 Fury is what he should have had right now, now he's up to 3. So I really don't want to get hit. You saw right there, I did what I've done a couple times now. I was a little bit, I think, early for the parry, so I didn't land it and I went for the heavy anyway, so I took a couple hits. And even with Killmonger's armor, they did hurt. Thankfully, neither of them were mediums, and so I didn't have to deal with his extra rage damage. I can handle 10% off, because we can always heal that up. Now that wasn't awesome right there. I was accepting the brute force, fully expecting that, but man, sometimes right now it just feels so difficult to dodge out of a combo. I don't know. It'll get fixed when it gets fixed. I'm trying to adapt to it, but sometimes the combos are just the worst part. I'm sure anybody who's trying out Summer of Pain knows exactly what I mean. Those Venom and Grandmaster fights are probably the 2 worst. I don't normally have it against iHulk, but that wasn't fun. Anyway, Stealth Spidey here. A fairly similar fight overall to the Red Hulk, although I don't recommend you open it by taking a full combo to the face. But basically the idea here is get him to throw his first special one, get True Strike up, and then we'll be fine. See, I shouldn't have used either of those counterpunch charges, but we're getting the issues with Dex just amplified here. Anyway, now we have True Strike up. The rest of the fight should be completely fine. I would have to massively mess up the counter, give him a ton of Furies, and then probably eat multiple full combos to lose this. And there's just not a huge chance of that happening. I may have to heal up at some point after this, but that's okay, I was going to anyway. There we go, this is probably the last one. Let's get that True Strike. Now, I did make a small mistake there. Because he has a double medium, I needed to wait until both hits connected before countering with the counterpunch. Because I went early, I was unstoppable, so I still hit him, but he also crit me for 7,000 damage. And so that's another item later on. Now, this Mysterio I do want to talk about, because this placement does come up a fair amount. In the past, I have seen it quaked, although because his ability accuracy can't be reduced, you do have to watch out for both the initial power snack and then backup recovery later, because he will have a bar of power at some point. Or with magic, to just avoid him throwing special so you don't have to deal with the reflection gas at all. One of our other BGs also successfully took this node with Nick. However, because when I've taken this node in the past against enemies like Longshot or Doom, who have the added bonus of Mystic Dispersion, even with Mystic Dispersion, I've usually only faced one or two specials. And because Mysterio's reflection gas maxes out at 7 seconds, and Reed's debuffs from his pre-fights last 15 seconds, plus the 3 seconds that you can pause them with the heavy. And if you notice, I made a point to bring the Invisible Woman synergy this time, because that boosts Reed's debuffs, all of them, including those stuns, as you can see right there on that heavy, by 25%. So basically, I figured that he would throw a couple specials, he would get reflection gas up, but especially if I power started, there was zero chance that I'd be running into any problems or having the debuffs be at risk of falling off as I waited out the reflection gas. And as you can see, by the time he got his second special one off there, I already had 3 stacks. So at this point, we every time that he triggers power snack, he actually loses power. And see there, backup recovery is draining him. Now, interestingly enough, he's not running willpower, so we're not getting that benefit here. I wonder if this person also placed a domino somewhere else. I forgot to check. But if they were placing a domino that they were trying to make harder on us with Warlock, then that would make sense. Either way, once we got that stack up, and then we got the Careful Study passive, this would have been fine without Reed's dupe, but it is always fun for the finish to quickly get up to that special 3, and whew, 15k mediums always feel good, especially out of a control champion. So that went extremely well. I did power start, but I don't think I had to. I tend to overboost the first time I ever take a new fight, and I think next time I won't be worried about that at all. I did take a hit or two in there, and I think that's just because right now with Dex and parry the way they are, the fact that Reed can evade if you don't parry just comes into play. I'll get over it. But on to this MODOK. This is a fairly common placement for MODOK. It doesn't really counter a lot of his best counters, so I don't think it's one of the best placements for him. But, you know, it's solid. It kind of encourages you to intercept and therefore to get auto-blocked, which normally isn't that big of a deal. It just might make it difficult to get extra damage in. But especially if you have somebody like Killmonger or anyone else who can get around that auto-block, it's just not that hard to fight. I mean, I guess he would mitigate the bleeds if you took this with Magneto, and you would have to re-parry to get the stuns. But even that is just, I don't know. If you know how to fight MODOK, if you have a good counter for him, then I don't think this node adds a whole lot to him. Which is, of course, a great thing to say as I mess up that L1 evade. And then I break my own advice. I almost never backdraft in war. I have no idea why I did there. I just got greedy, and I paid for it. But we should be fine. We do still have the True Strike. As soon as he throws it, we get it back, so it doesn't even matter if we lose it. We get our Reverb back up. And then here's where I definitely swiped back from that heavy. Whatever. Either I missed the timing, or it's just the way things are right now. Thankfully, it didn't kill me. This would have been a really embarrassing fight to burn out to over something like that, just standing still and eating a heavy. But at least none of them crit. Thank you, Killmonger, and your crit resistance. Got some extra power from those new debuffs and closed out the fight. I took a short breather after that one, even though... I was actually waiting for this next fight to be cleared before I could get to Spider-Ham. Shout out to Campo for doing a good job on the Killmonger that was in between these two. But I healed up, went in with this, used the regen boost, and I talked, I believe it was last war, about how this fight can go poorly, but I don't think it's that bad if you manage it right. And then, of course, I get hit while dashing back from his heavy. Like, I knew it was coming. I was dashing back. It hit me anyway. That second time it crit. It took him up to a special 2, which you can't counter to get True Strike. He had high spider nonsense. I just cut that one off. I know when something's going south, and it feels really, really crappy to give up an attack bonus. But I backed off. I shook it off. I did my duel before the regen boost expired, just to kind of practice a couple heavy evades. I went back in, and then I managed this the way that I showed last war. And he actually cooperated this time. I mean, that first one, I haven't had him behave like that with the random heavies catching you as you're evading since he came out, and it was really not fun to find out that he can still do that. But I'll be a little more on the lookout for it, because this war was definitely humbling, both with how well this exact fight went last time, and with how well this second take is going. Like, this is not something where Killmonger has a problem. And, I mean, I can point to the things happening in the game, I could maybe point to things in real life, but it just, at the end of the day, I need to execute a little better, and I will next time. Because this almost felt even worse than the embarrassment of dying once, because we spent quite a bit of this morning tied up, and we were well behind on fight duration, and I think it's just because our opponents have bigger rosters than us, maybe some beefier champions, maybe some more access to 30% boosts. Maybe they just run recoil more and then heal up from it. Either way, it was not looking good at all. And so I was ready to feel like I had blown the whole thing. Luckily, my buddy Strands was able to solo the Terax boss with his cable, which is not the easiest fight in the world to pull off. The timing on that heavy counter is quite difficult. And then, in an amazing stroke of serendipity, his rank 3 Mangog boss was actually the one that got the last kill and brought us back into the win, which we really needed. We need that tier 1 multiplier. I think we're finally in it for this next war, and we just need to keep climbing. And I would really like it if I could make it so that I had a war that I was actually proud of going forward. I mean, there's been a lot of good stuff happening this season. It's good to be back in war, as I've said a few times. I really missed it, and I feel like I've got a really great battle group that I'm, running with some great people. I mentioned Campo already. He has a great channel that I'll link in the description. He's been helping us plan my returning officers, Taint and Q. I mean, everybody's just been great. It's a fantastic group, and the Alliance is doing well. I just need to tighten up myself and hope that the rest of us can tighten up just a little bit more too. So we'll see how it goes. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, learned some interesting uses for Reed and Killmonger, and a couple things that you shouldn't do if you value your items and or your attack bonuses. But I will catch y'all next time. Take care.